Hey everyone, Big Loss back again talking about the Steam machine and glazing it for 13 minutes straight. Before we dive into that, if you like the video, if you like the gameplay, or if you like my other stuff that I do, please feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscribe, and I'd greatly appreciate it. Now, this video could have been one of two videos. One, glazing the Steam machine, which is what we are basically going to be doing. Or two, I was going to comment on the Xbox event that happened earlier today, but you're going to see this video tomorrow. So, yesterday to you guys. And the games looked fun. There was a lot of interesting games that looked fun. There was obviously Reanimal, which is something I'm excited for because I like the Little Nightmares types of games. There was a few other games that I don't really quite remember the name of, but some of them looked fun. There was like a Vampire Survivor sequel, but I think it might play differently. The first game that they started with, I forgot what it's called, but it started with an A. That looked fun. There was like the Animal Cyberpunk like action-y game that looks fun. But at the end of the day, I was kind of thinking this might have been like Xbox's response to the Steam machine. This was going to be like Xbox's chance to show themselves and look real good for the game enjoyers. But even though the games looked fun, you know, all of them are going to be available on Steam. There wasn't anything that was really like Xbox exclusive. So when it ended, it was like what, maybe 45 minutes long, 40 minutes long. Once it ended, there was a lot of people who were like, these games look good. But then there was also a lot of other people that were like, that's it? You know, there wasn't a lot of, and maybe this is my lack of knowledge on game studios, but it didn't really seem like there were a lot of heavy hitters that were coming out. I don't know. Maybe that's my lack of knowledge. Maybe these games are made by big studios, but since I don't really play a lot of AAA games, I'm just out of the loop. I don't know. But it didn't really look like a lot of heavy hitters to me. But like I said, they look fun. A lot of them are going to be on Steam. And I feel like it's just another reason as to why a Steam machine would be a better choice over an Xbox because, well, Steam, all these games are going to be available on Steam. Xbox doesn't really have a exclusive market. And you know, now that I've had more time to listen to basically every YouTube video about the Steam machine in existence, I can definitely say that my previous statement about the Steam machine being more powerful, but not that much more powerful than a Series S is wrong. Thank goodness. Everyone's been saying it's going to be comparable to a PS5. I've even heard some people venture to say that it might be comparable to a PS5 Pro. I would wager it's probably going to be closer to the PS5, but again, I don't really know computer parts. I don't really know computer specs like that, so I might be wrong on that. But with that being said, I'm excited. I feel like the Steam machine, and I feel like I might have been saying Steam Deck earlier. I have no idea. I don't remember. But I feel like the Steam machine is like an upgraded version of what the Wii U should have been. And I'm really thinking about just the connectivity between the machine, the Steam machine, and the Steam Deck. Because, you know, you have access to your Steam library on the Steam machine. You have your library access on the Steam Deck. And I feel like this is kind of what the Wii U should have been, where you have that console counterpart and you have that portable counterpart. Of course, the Switch 1 and Switch 2 exist, but at the same time, what makes the Steam machine versus Steam Deck stand out is because the Steam machine, that console counterpart, is a lot more powerful than the portable counterpart. And I like I said, I feel like maybe this is what the Wii U should have been. This makes me think, even though I have a Series X, and I feel like I probably should think a little bit harder about, do I really need this? But I think there might be some other people who may not necessarily have a next-gen console, whether they're just saving money, they're just trying to be financially responsible, and they just haven't been able to get the newest gen, even though it's been out for a long time. I think some people might be gravitated towards this option compared to their latter options. I will say, I feel like because I have the Series X, I should really think about it, or maybe wait for it to be a financially sound decision, as we should do with all video games. But that's just kind of where my mind is at. But if I were to get this thing, what I think would be the perfect idea is get a 2 terabyte micro SD, which will be interchangeable between the Steam Deck and the Steam Machine, and then get the 2 terabyte version Steam Machine, which would mean 4 terabytes in total on the Steam Machine. And I personally feel like I would never have to worry about file sizes of video games ever again. Like I said, I play mostly indie games, or just games that are a smaller file size. I also play games that are like old AAA games, again, so not a huge file size. So 4 terabytes would probably be so much so that I wouldn't really have to worry about these games' file sizes, because on my Steam Deck right now, I have 1 terabyte altogether, and I have a lot of space, but there's still all right, time to move around my games, time to uninstall a few, time to install a few. But if I had 4 terabytes across the board, 4 times the size, I really feel like it would just smooth sailing. It would be smooth sailing. Again, the AAA games that are out right now that I do play are Space Marine 2, Doom the Dark Ages, maybe sometimes Borderlands 3, maybe I would get Borderlands 4. So those would probably be big file sizes. Monster Hunter World, Monster Hunter Wilds. Again, those would probably be decent file sizes, but that's it. The rest of my AAA library would be games from the 2010s or 2000s, so their file sizes would be extensively smaller. And then the rest of them would be games that are indie, or games kind of like Bolt Gun, not a large file size there. It's a modern day game, but it's not a big file size. And that would just be, so 4 terabytes would just be so much space to basically have my entire library on one console, and then of course move that 2 terabyte micro SD to the Steam Deck whenever I feel like it. It would also be a good idea to get a 2 terabyte Steam or micro SD card, because if I were playing, or if I were planning on getting the Steam Machine, I pre-download a bunch of games on that micro SD card on my Steam Deck, so that I can just plug that micro SD card into the Steam Machine, and bam, there you go. I have a bunch of these games just loaded up and ready to go. That would be a good idea. I don't know. Again, like I said, I want the Steam Machine to be successful. I want it to succeed at the end of the day. And that doesn't really mean I want it to beat Xbox. I want it to beat Nintendo Switch 2. I want it to beat the PS5. Not really. I don't really care about all that. I just want the console to do well, and they pursue other things like this in the future. And I want to think long and hard before I get something like this. But I really hope they choose the right price point. A lot of people are still debating what that price is going to be. I'm really hoping it's somewhere near $500 for the base model, and then like $700 to $750 for the 2 terabyte model. If it's anything more than that, I don't know how it's going to succeed in the future. Like I said, I really hope it does. I really want this to succeed because I'm interested in having a console, Steam machine, and then a Steam Deck, and then just bouncing my library between the two. Imagine if that's kind of what the Wii U was. You have the portable version that you take around with you wherever you go, and then you have the console version. I don't know. I'm excited, even if, to be honest, there's a good chance I probably wouldn't get it right away. I'd probably wait maybe like a year down the line before getting it. Number one, see if there's any issues with the console. So if they need to fix any kinks that are causing issues. And then 2, again, just to save up money or make sure it's a good financial decision. And then I would probably purchase something like this. But I'm still excited. I'm excited to see what happens when people get the console and see how games perform. They're touting this whole every game will run at 4K 60 frames per second with FSR, which is just a bunch of gibberish to me, to be completely honest. I really don't care about any of that. If it's 1080p and 60 frames per second, that's fine by me. That's a pretty clear image to me. I can't really... sure, when they're right next to each other, you can probably tell the difference. But if my game runs smoothly, I really don't care what it looks like. I'm not really 4K crazy. If a game runs well and it looks good, that's all I care about. But anyways, I wanted to yammer on about the Steam machine and, talk about it, glaze it for a little bit. Anyways, stay safe, everyone, and bye-bye.